We're going to look at a little bit about Valley leadership overall, what we're all about, who we are, how we got to this new program. Catalyze is a brand new program. We'll talk a little bit more about our program portfolio in addition to Catalyze and what else we offer. And then after that, we actually won't have alumni stories, but we will do some Q&A. So before we dive in, I want to give you a little bit more background on Valley leadership. As an organization, our mission is very clear. We're working to bring together a broad spectrum of Arizonans to work in collaboration as leaders to impact Arizona's most pressing issues. This is something we do, and as a core belief, we believe that leadership is action. So it's not necessarily a job title or a position that you hold. Instead, we believe leadership is something all of us can choose to practice. So for those of you that are aware of Valley leadership, been around 40 years and probably a little more on the job title position where you are maybe in your career. We've moved away from that because we want to see as to be true and aligned to our mission, a broad spectrum of Arizonans. And for all sorts of different reasons, Arizonans who want to lead can come from different places, whether or not they have that job title or position. When we practice leadership and when we live out leadership, we have what we call our principles of doing, the 5 that you see here. This guides everything we do as an organization, but also our leadership in action philosophy, what we expect of our leaders coming into the program, and being able to practice even better leaving the program, driven to do, putting Arizona first, building trust, a team mindset, and doing everything with integrity. This is the backbone of the Catalyze program, of all of our programs, and you'll see that throughout the rest of the presentation, but also definitely within your Catalyze experience. So when we were thinking about, do we want to have as many leaders as possible activated, informed, ready to be leveraged as we tackle Arizona's most pressing issues, we really spent a lot of time thinking about, okay, what does that look like? And that brought us here to today. As I mentioned, Catalyze is a new program and it's part of a new suite of programming. What we've done is taken all the best parts of our past programming and built upon them to create a new suite of programs that we believe has the potential to really move our organization and our state forward, using all of you, using our leaders. Our new program suite is designed for anyone who wants to do good work for Arizona. So this question here that's put on the screen, that's really what it comes down to. Do you want to do? Do you want to do something for Arizona? If you do, then you're in the right place. And Catalyze is a great starting point, and is the program that we're going to talk about more today. We also have an ongoing effort called the Impact Maker, which is something you can tap into after you've completed Catalyze. And because Catalyze will serve as a prerequisite for our other programs, completing it this year gives you the option to join our Explore program or Summit program in the future. So Catalyze serves as this backbone, foundational experience, understanding of Arizona's issues as then we go and explore how you'll do work via Impact Maker, Explore, and Summit. That said, we're excited to share with you today the details of Catalyze. We've designed Catalyze to do 4 big things. 1, help participants make connections with others who are eager to make a positive impact on our community. Create the space for participants to build knowledge about not only themselves, but also the most pressing issues facing Arizona. Introduce participants to tools that will help build upon their introspection, communication, and collaboration skills. And lastly, help participants broaden their perspectives by hearing from community leaders working on those most pressing issues. So it is a very intentional 5 months or so where we really wrap in these 4 areas and you leave. And again, one of the reasons why Catalyze is the prerequisite for everything else is we feel these are the 4 key building blocks to doing for Arizona. The issues that we'll explore over the course of the sessions include everything you see here. Social determinants of health, education, obviously, housing, child well-being, policy. We'll get into some parts of policy and how policy looks at all of this, racial justice, hope and opportunity, and then graduation. This is your session for the fall and what it will look like sessions 1 through 12. They kick off in early September and will end in February. Each session will run for approximately 3 hours and will occur every other week. You can expect also to spend 1 to 1.5 hours prepping for each session so that we're able to make the most of our time in that 3-hour online virtual session. I know all of us are done with Zoom. Well, not everybody. That's, I think, maybe a blanket generalization. Some people are still fine with Zoom. We make our 3 hours very dynamic. They run quickly. So when you think about, geez, I'm going to be on 3 hours every other week, yes, but it does move quickly. The 1.5 hours or so of prep is not just reading. There's videos, there's actual things that you'll be going out into the community to do. So it's not just, hey, I got to read for an hour and a half before I do my session. We try to keep things as dynamic and moving as possible. Our staff who help build Catalyze are skilled and professionals in how adults learn, how adults retain information, how they use information. So we really make it as dynamic and fun 3 hours as possible, knowing that you're going to be online. Because we want to make sure that anyone across the entire state of Arizona can participate, all the program sessions that were just listed are held virtual. But sprinkled throughout the program will be opportunities to socialize with each other in person, as well as the opportunity to socialize with people virtually. And in particular, a kickoff in-person social that will happen in late August, where you'll be able to meet your entire cohort, which we expect to be around 100 people. The cohort that you'll be spending your day with, your virtual session with, because those will be broken out into 2 opportunities that you'll get to pick. And then also your pod. We keep people in groups of between 8 and 12, depending on the final class size of a pod that you'll see regularly throughout the program. We'll also do mixed pods where you'll just get scattered randomly by Zoom into different breakout rooms where you get to meet people. So we really give you an opportunity to meet absolutely online during the session, but outside of that as well, because we know socialization in person is important. And in particular, before you just see a face on a camera screen or a computer screen for 5 months, let's at least meet some people in person so you get to know personalities and other things. So that will happen before we kick off things in September. When you arrive at a virtual session, you'll be greeted with an agenda that looks something like this. As I mentioned before, our sessions are designed to be fast-paced and interactive, so you can expect to engage in multiple breakout sessions with your peers, as well as hear from 1 to as many as 5 guest speakers, depending on our topic and session format. So again, each program day will be a little different based on the content. Each presenter obviously will be different, but we do keep things moving and lively, where you're still getting the content in an easy way, a more digestible way. That we by the end of the 5 months you'll walk out with definitely a bigger brain, but we hopefully in a way that is digestible along the way. If you're wondering what kind of guest speakers we tend to invite, here's just a small sample that we heard from our first Catalyze program, which just wrapped up this last February. You can see a varied group, the leaders among leaders. The nice thing about Valley leadership that I've come to learn, I am not an alumni, is that within our network, and you look at CEOs of for-profit, nonprofits, government sector leaders, political leaders, they're either a Valley leadership alumni or one person removed. So we really do get the best of the best when it comes to leaders working on these issues, thinking about these issues, and they're all very excited and willing to meet with all of you when we get into each session. So the insight you gain from our guest speakers, in addition to the independent work you'll do to prepare for each session, is designed to help you clarify for yourself what you're willing to do after Catalyze ends. This all culminates in what we call a committing to do personal statement impact plan. We are no longer satisfied as an organization to tell you things, teach you things, show you things. We want you to do something with it. Thus, the one prerequisite for entering Catalyze even, which is, do you want to do? So all of the program sessions have an intentional thread throughout where we get you ready for that personal impact plan. You'll commit to it, you'll share it with others, and we expect you to do. That's part of our application process that you'll articulate with the few short answer questions we have. We want people who are willing to do and are committed to do. One of the ways that you can get involved pretty quickly, which is something that's always hard to do with leadership programs, which is why we created the Impact Maker. The Impact Maker is a network of VL alumni, strategic partners who are actually doing the work, all working together to tackle to-do lists in pursuit of immediate impact, as well as systemic change. We set up this model as a way to identify various issues that we feel are most pressing for the state of Arizona, and create that space and create that intentional partnership and strategic partnership with groups already doing the work, so that you're put to work relatively easily and quickly. Everybody leaves any leadership session or group or program fired up, ready to change the world. But the activation of that is not always the easiest thing. So again, we look to our alumni to say, how can we create a space, a structure where that's possible, and you're able to go and do some things right away, and in areas that are most pressing for the state. So if that sounds like something you want to be a part of, then you should know anyone who completes Catalyze or has actually already gone through a Valley Leadership program is welcome to join the Impact Maker in any one of these teams. As we mentioned before, Catalyze sessions will begin in early September, specifically the first week of September, or September 5th, right after Labor Day, and occur about every other week until February 20th. There's a little more of a break around the holidays, where you get a little more space between sessions. We'll offer 2 session options. This is very important: one daytime option and one evening option, so that you can select into the session series that works best for your schedule. One of the things we've done in our reimagining of our programs is, again, we want to make it as accessible as possible. And one of those is offering different times. So for our session last fall, there was a Tuesday evening session and a Thursday afternoon session. Once accepted, you'll get pinged and surveyed to figure out which part of which day you prefer. We've been very lucky with our 2 sessions. We also had a Ready Together program during COVID that served kind of as the basis for Catalyze. And we were lucky that half the group roughly fit into either one, so that everybody actually got their first preferred choice of the time slot they wanted. But it will be a daytime, it will be an evening, and we'll do some surveying and scoring to figure out how that will look for your experience. The second thing, and very important thing, we realized that we wanted to be, if we wanted as many leaders as possible and to be as accessible as possible, was the cost of the programming. We never want cost to be a barrier to participation, so we've created a sliding scale. The program costs now range from $200 to $850, depending on income level. So it's not something where there's a high level now. Typically, or historically, with our Institute program, is upwards of $3,000. And we knew that was a barrier. We knew that excluded people right off the bat who couldn't afford $3,000. So all of this is based on income levels that we put some thought into, based on single income or family. Scholarships, wage replacements are also available, and you can make that request as part of your application. So again, we want anyone who wants to attend, who can do for Arizona, we want them to get into the program, and we have that available. So the application is completely online. And has, as I mentioned before, a few short answer questions. We have staff and board review applications as they come in. So there are already some that have been scored, and we're going to announce that first set of people next week. And once we've reviewed your application, you can expect a notification email letting you know whether you've been accepted or not. To access the application, please just visit our website at valleyleadership.org/catalyze, and make sure your application is submitted by the deadline, which is next week, Tuesday, right after Memorial Day. You have a nice long weekend to do the application. It really doesn't take longer than 15, 20 minutes, probably. They're short answer questions. We do want to see some thought put into those questions because you are scored, and we have developed a rubric for that scoring. Again, we want to see leaders who are committed, ready to do, who have some alignment to our principles of doing. So you can review those a little more in depth on our website. And we'll kick off the cohort later this summer, at the end of the summer, actually, right before Labor Day. So with that, want to give some time for some Q&A. And because I'll be a little technically challenged, if you wouldn't mind, just unmute yourself and ask a question. That will actually be easier than throwing it in the chat, which is harder for me to look at. And we can go through some questions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Swanson. I go by Andy. It's nice to see you all. Thank you for hosting this. I had a quick question.
Yes.
How does this compare to programs in the past? Was the impetus for this really during COVID to do it virtually, or I'm just trying to get a sense of, I know a few alumni and they had shared that their journey was slightly different. So I was just curious if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yes. So not to go into the long history of leadership programs, but they came out of the 80s out of Atlanta. And they were in cities all across America, and they were really more footprint based. Geographic footprint based. Let's meet your mayor, let's meet your cops, firefighters, teachers, elected officials, your newspaper. These grew and got bigger. That became more of a chore. There's lots more to talk about. The problems got more sophisticated. The solutions to the challenges that cities were facing became more sophisticated. So we looked at that too and said, Phoenix has gone, as a native, I've seen it grow, from a small town to kind of a big suburb to now 5th largest city. And to know about the issues is not enough. So a lot of our past 40 years was more on content. Let's tell you about things. What we and many leadership organizations across the country struggled with was how do we put that into action? We spent some time in Denver looking at how they did things, Chicago. There's great examples even in Tulsa, Rhode Island, about how we take a leader, feed them some knowledge, and then have them do something. So we looked at that, and then we're already reimagining and started to tweak, and then COVID happened. And what COVID taught us was, one, there's definitely some barriers to programming, leadership programming generally, especially when you look at a state like Arizona, where yes, Maricopa County is where most of the population lives, but the issues and how they show up in different parts of the state are so different that we need to appreciate that and figure out what we can do to learn about that. So during Catalyze, you will hear from people in different parts of the state, especially on Education Day. We have a wonderful presenter who teaches up in Flagstaff, which is very different than how things are here. Lots of common denominators with Maricopa County, but being able to learn from people outside of Maricopa County has been huge. And that's really only done and possible virtually. And then also hearing from people who live outside of Maricopa County that this is what I experienced. So as we started meshing this all together, it does look different. In my experience, our former program was a little more start and stop, issue by issue, month to month. Catalyze is much more threaded. One of our themes is interconnectedness. You'll see how every issue that I showed on the screen is interconnected, so that there's a sense of, yep, I'm not getting the full breadth of everything I need to know about education. That's actually more of like its own semester. But you will be able to see how education is connected with child well-being, which is connected with housing, which is connected with social determinants of health. All those things will come to life. It won't be superficial. It will have some depth to it. But we wanted with Catalyze an opportunity for anyone in Arizona to really get, okay, what's up with Arizona, including Maricopa County, and what's my next step down that path? Give people a little bit to go on so that they can then jump into some of these other opportunities and go and do more. So a little less start and stop, a little less personal. So I think part of this too is in what we've challenged ourselves internally too is let's get more interactions with people. That's how you build relationships. So it's and that was part of the program last year. Unfortunately, with Omicron spike, we weren't able to do a few of our in-person socials. The in-person socials are super casual. We go to basically a restaurant, camp out, grab appetizers, beers, whatever, wine, and people just talk and meet. And even that for an hour is great relationship building. So there's definitely relationship building. It's a bigger cohort, so you'll see maybe more people than in previous cohorts. But we really try to take, again, the best of each program that we've had historically and put it in a way that is more accessible, more inclusive for people that want to do something for Arizona. Thanks, Andrea. Sharon.
Hi. You may have already explained this, but if you could indulge me, can you give one or two examples of the impact that Catalyze or previous programs has made on some of these areas that we're going to be studying over the 12 weeks?
Sure. And I'll just to give myself a frame of reference, I'll go back to our impact teams. So impact maker teams are now 2-3 years in the works. They actually started with our last couple of institute program cohorts. And just to pick out one, but I use because it's still a serious issue and one that has not been solved and is in need of some systemic change in the health space, which is opioid substance use disorder. We have a whole process where we go and figure out what will people actually work on. We went through that process, landed on food and nutrition and opioids in the health space, and we just launched the housing component of the health team. But in the opioid space, lots could be done. And again, in kind of project-based direct service, we could hand out Narcan. There was even an effort at the time to hand out clean needles. We could do awareness programs. We could do awareness programs with youth. We could do awareness programs with teachers. All these sorts of things where we felt like it's pretty endless to what we could do when it comes to addressing opioids. And the big part of that was long-term change. So each of these teams has a vision and a long-term goal. The health team's long-term goal is that more Arizonans live longer. And with opioid overdoses, it keeps curbing us backwards, especially when a lot of the deaths are coming in that 40 to 50-year-old range. So anything the health team did, in particular with opioid and substance use disorder, was we got to have more Arizonans live longer. So one of the ways we thought about that was, yeah, you give somebody Narcan, they don't die at that moment. Maybe that helps our stat. We were, again, always have this perspective of long-term. And we felt like mostly also because the leader of our health team is an emergency room physician, the mental health behind opioid addiction. And so we wanted to look at something where, how do we solve for that? And the route we took was, let's get employers involved. There's still many employers that have zero tolerance policies. So you are on substance use disorder, or you're on substance use, a substance, you're done, you're fired. They likely can have a better chance of becoming a statistic. How do we get employers to say, hey, let's see if we can help you work through your need to have opiate? And so with the governor's bill and the legislature's bill from a few years ago to curb prescribed opiates, we saw a great dip. No longer all the, Percocets, Vicodins that you could get, those went down. Unfortunately, they were replaced by the illicits and the fentanyl. And overall, our death, our life expectancy still stayed flat, and the number of deaths from opioids recently started to increase. So for us, this affirmed the fact that, yeah, we can't just say, here's Narcan and save a life temporarily. We really need to think about how can we get companies to look at this maybe in the same way they do diabetes or cancer or other long-term diseases and say, let's help you get better so that you don't just switch from Vicodin to fentanyl and become the statistic which lowers our annual or lowers our life expectancy, but get you off it completely. And that's a kind of example of how we're looking long-term. We built a website that was built by HR professionals, legal policy people, all from the VL network, and looked at it and said, if you're a company and you want to do just a little bit to get started, this is what you would do. If you want to go a little further, here's some more resources. And it's a very curated set of resources. It's not just, hey, good luck, and here's all these policies and procedures. It really does help a company start their journey towards a non-zero tolerance policy, where we're pushing as many companies as possible and starting that work now to say, let's get you on that path. Here's how you start. Here's how you get your leadership involved, because we feel that ultimately impacts the long term. It's not just, hey, we handed out Narcan, temporarily saved a life. We want to keep that life saved throughout. So that's one example of how a recent team is working. Each of these teams, if you visit the website, you'll see their to-do items. And you'll see the people, the faces behind those to-do items who are working on. Some are more short-term, but most are in those space of eventually we need to figure out how we solve this. FAFSA, we know if a kid fills out a FAFSA, they're more likely to go to college. If they go to college, they're more likely to stay in college. How do we get more kids to fill out FAFSAs? A whole team's working on that. Child well-being, how do we get more families the preventative support services they need so their kid doesn't enter the Department of Child Safety and all of the trauma that will happen with that? How do we get the families what the services they need in an easy way? We're building a chat bot. So all of the work of the teams has some project-based short-term, but it really is towards that systemic change we want to see. And unfortunately, in Arizona, we're not short of issues that need that long-term look. We continue to kind of do things on a short-term, even legislative session by legislative session fix. We're looking at things in a much longer term because we want to solve. That's part of our mission. Other questions? Yep. Oh, thank you, Sharon. I know I've been talking a lot, which if you join the program, I probably won't talk as much. All right. Last call. Any questions along the way, as I hope you all apply? You can email me directly, dave@valleyleadership.org. Again, the application deadline is, well, 5/31 next Tuesday, I think. So you have the weekend. Feel free to email me. We'll figure things out. If you have any technological problems, it's a pretty easy, self-explanatory online system. But if you run into any issues, just let me know, and I hope to see you all come August, which will be here before we know it.